It's been 1 year since I deleted my social media accounts, and I think that's a good time to give an update. I've been collecting your questions on how my year went, what changed for me, and what difficulties I maybe encountered. And I'll also talk about how I will continue from now on as an artist and also just as a normal person. This is going to be a very long video, so I'll divide it into two parts. I'll start with a general and business questions, and then I'll tackle social media for artists, communities for learning, and I'll also cover some personal questions. So let's dive into this Q&A. So the first question is, how did my year go? What changed for me as an artist with a business and as a person? So overall, my first year without social media was really great. I learned a lot, I read a lot of books, I worked on my art skills, and I also had way more free time. So first let's take a look at how I quit social media, because I got a lot of questions about that too. I had been taking lengthy breaks from social media before that, and this time I wanted to change something substantially. So I deleted my profiles in June 2019. First, my entire Facebook presence, which was really easy because Facebook is often really just an awful place where discussions turn really ugly, you lose a lot of time, and it did nothing for my business. I had a business page at that time, and it didn't really reach a lot of people. And I have to say that's standard, and if you want to reach someone via Facebook, you have to pay for ads to get any kind of reach. And at the same time, I put Instagram into this mode that I think was called invisible or something like that. So basically all your posts are still there, but no one can see your profile from the outside. It's as it doesn't exist. So it's not a private profile, but it's like it's not there at all. And I left things like this for a few weeks. And in July 2019, right before I left for my summer holiday, I pressed the delete button on the Instagram profile. And I knew I wouldn't worry about social media stuff for at least 2 weeks, so it was a good point in time to take this step. So the timing was really important for me. And then when I returned and started working again, I basically focused on all kinds of different creative projects. I tried to get further away from this pressure to post and to being present on the internet. And I have to say it was fading, but still there. And I went through this phase of readjusting. And so this is a feeling of being free, like a huge burden was taken away. But also I didn't really know if I needed to do something different instead, or just continue like before, only without social media. So it was a bit of a weird feeling, a bit of a transition phase. And then there was also the fact that I had a hand injury during that time last year. So I couldn't draw for a while, which is sort of essential for me as an artist. And I went through this bit of a slow phase, sort of an art crisis because of it. And this was parallel. And as I mentioned, I focused on many other projects in that time, and it really helped me a lot to be away from the world of social media. So it helped me to focus on what's important for me at that moment, instead of looking at all of the other things that I'm missing out on. And in the end, I think I came back stronger and more motivated when I finally picked up the pencil again. And this process really took a few months. In the meantime, I think I entirely forgot that there used to be such a thing as social media, that I once had to use for at least an hour a day, always struggling to post something better, something more engaging. Really, this sort of hamster wheel, this pressure, this really disappeared very quickly. So what changed for me as an artist or as a person too? I think the two are sort of intertwined. I like to think I've gotten more confident because I don't compare myself much anymore. So I'm allowing more experiments in my art practice. I also learn and grow in my techniques in ways that I didn't really before. So I mean, I made experiments before, but not in that way. I always had this comparison in my head. This is also something, so experiments, new techniques, that doesn't really happen a lot when you have to make time for social media, because especially on Instagram you get rewarded for posting the same things over and over and over. So I basically stopped worrying about what all the others do and if I should do the same to have their success. This was a thought that was very present before, and that is obviously not true. So quitting social media has shown me that I don't have to compare myself, but there can be mentors, art mentors and artists that I can learn from. And I can take in what they have to say, but I can also ignore the rest, so I don't have to run after them that much and compare myself to them all the time. So did I struggle with anything? And we have a question from Kathy, and she says, were your struggles with income or followers? How did you get enough followers without being all over social media? So I worried before I deleted the profiles that it would be a huge mistake and that I would lose attention and a part of my audience. But I have to say, none of this happened. As mentioned above, I struggled a bit in that time after deleting my profiles to find a new routine for myself. And it helped me massively to have plans and focused activities in place, things that I knew would bring me forward and that I enjoy doing. So this was really, really central for me to have a plan and an action plan, so to speak. And I didn't have less income than in the years before. I also didn't notice a huge drop in my audience. So I still had and have my website and my blog. And people used to find me through that before social media, and they still do. So since I also teach classes online on a platform, some people also notice my work there and hop over to my website. So everything is sort of pointing to my website. And people who really want to stay in contact with me or in touch with my work are on my newsletter, I suppose. And there are always new people who find my work, who like it enough to join my newsletter. And from there, I can be in contact with them directly. It's a much more powerful tool than social media for me, because I can reach a much higher percentage of my audience through email. I also started to post more videos on this YouTube channel, but I really didn't get started until early this year with this. So I don't know that this helped a lot in the process. So I know that YouTube can be considered social media too, but I don't use it that way. And for me, it's a tool to share ideas, sort of like a video library for learning cool new stuff. And it also helps when you put up new videos to your YouTube channel. This also helps with your Google ranking, actually. So that's a nice side effect. And this is something that you also won't get from Instagram. So onto the questions around art business and marketing. And Rhapsody in Blue asks, I'd love to know how many followers you had when you deleted your account. I'm facing a loss of 8K if I choose to pull the plug. So I would love you to slap some sense into me and give me a push to still do it. I can definitely do that. So I had around 4K on Instagram, and I've forgotten the Facebook number, but around 1,500. So not really many. And 8K is not much either in the big scheme of social media. Remember that a large number of these people will never even see your posts because of the algorithm on Instagram. So at least that was how it worked before I quit. If you're worried about losing your audience, you can always announce that you will leave before you pull the plug, and take these people with you to your newsletter or website or wherever you want to point them. And you should have this ready. You should have a website, you should have a newsletter. This is crucial. Set up your own platform where you can direct people to. And everyone, really everyone who has a creative business should have their own platform, their website. This is the central part of keeping in touch with your audience. This is the cornerstone. And you can really do very significant things like earning money with an active newsletter audience of 8,000 people, as opposed to a social media audience of that size. Okay? So the next question is from Aurélie. As an illustrator, I'm questioning more and more the production of free content to endlessly fuel Instagram and Facebook. I started my blog in 2005 and it was such a joy then, but it's entirely different now, and I would like to find a way to go back or go forward toward a simpler handling of my social media. Yes, I can totally understand this, and sometimes I would love to be back in the 90s too, when the internet was so much more friendly and a much more fun place. But things have really changed a lot especially for creatives. And while I don't think that all changes are for the worse, I find that most creatives are really sort of shoveling their own graves with social media. So you're right to question this production of endless free content every day, and it's a lot of work. Maintaining a social media presence can feel like a full-time job. It can even be a full-time job, but it won't really get you anything. It will devalue your artwork. So the art that you're supposed to earn money from, it's posted and regurgitated every day for free on these platforms. So it's no wonder the prices go down everywhere. By posting on social media, artists are contributing to this devaluation of their work. At least that's my perspective. And the business models of social media is to keep your attention and turn it into profit. So we shouldn't really be surprised. We artists are stupid enough to give these platforms the free content that they need to do that. They need to keep this attention. I still believe in the concept of a social internet, not social media platforms, but the social internet. So an internet that's full of blogs and forums where people can meet and exchange ideas. So much like my own blog. The blogging world was much more active before social media, and I like to think that we can keep it alive or revive it again if enough people decide against using social media. Blogs are an excellent way to share ideas, long-form content and deep thoughts, and they make for a better reading experience. And another medium that's great for this are podcasts. They're an excellent medium to dive deep into a topic. So I believe it makes a huge difference in what form you consume your content. The medium changes our understanding of things. If you read long, complex content like a book or a long article or listen to a podcast, then your mind will process the information differently than if you attack it with short, disjointed bursts interspersed with ads presented through an algorithm that's manufactured to keep you on the site as long as possible. I think it really makes a difference. And science suggests this too, that social media makes it harder for us to form long, complex thoughts because of the way the information is presented to us. So the medium influences the message. Just keep that in mind. When we have content that's made for quick scrolling, it often lacks nuance, and that's not really the way the world works. The world is very nuanced. The world is not simple like that. If you don't engage with long-form content like blogs or books or podcasts that look really intensely at a subject and then activate your deep thinking muscles, then you won't get under the surface. And for me, that's just really all that's important. That's where social media falls short, and a deeper understanding or deep communication about topic gets lost. So again, the world is not simple, and we need that room for nuance, especially with our art. And obviously that's a whole problem in itself, but I personally don't want to add to it. So I don't make people go to these platforms in the same way that I don't go there myself. Okay, the next question is from Bethan. Do you think your business benefited from being on social media in the beginning? Do you have to use it in the beginning to build up a certain level of loyalty and a big enough mailing list to then be able to continue without? So I don't know if social media brought a lot of people to my audience. I mean, I had my blog and a newsletter before I was even on social media, and I had both things parallel for a while, so it's a bit hard to say, but there were usually more responses on the blog. It's for me just a way more personal method to stay in touch with people, and I always valued it more. It's also hard to say because when you have a very small social media presence like I had, there's no big impact from that. And I know I tried to send people to my social profiles so that these would gain followers, so it was probably the other way around. And then the key to building an audience is always the same. It's time and work. So it doesn't matter if you put it into social media or your own platform, you always have these two factors. I put a lot of time into blogging on my website, getting my name out there in the search engine so that people would find me. It's a good idea to have these different ways through which people can find you. And it's true that social media can be one of them. But again, I think in terms of, is this really worth my time to put so much energy into this social media thing with so little return? And I came to the conclusion that it's not, and that I should focus on my blog and on my website. So the next question is from Catherine. I would like to know whether, had you never used social media to build up a profile and gain the confidence that can come from random strangers liking and commenting on your work, whether you think your blog and email approach would have been as successful as it is. So yes, likes and follows give you a hit of dopamine. That feels really nice if you check it a lot throughout the day, but that's not the same as confidence, at least for me. It's more like a dependency. And apart from that, I think any confidence I might have built up from likes and follows were always immediately crushed by not feeling adequate enough when comparing myself to all of the other awesome artists in my feed, or to something that I saw there earlier. And actually my confidence went down when I checked my feeds. I've never felt as pressured and unhappy with my art and with myself when I was constantly consuming social media. So that should give you a pointer. Next question is from Jody. How are you marketing? Everyone is saying that you absolutely cannot make a living if you aren't on social media. Can you address this? Including how to make sure you are growing a valuable audience in your business without social media. So I think you can definitely sell and make a living without social media. I know several artists who do this, and obviously myself. And I'd like to think about this way. How do you think that artists make a living before we had social media? A lot of the strategies they used are still valid and working these days. So reaching out to the right people in your industry, building personal relationships with your audience, with important people, making great and interesting work that will get shared without you having to share it. And a website is a great place to start. So this should be your main focus. I already said that, and I hope I'm not repeating myself, but this is really, really important. By having a website and filling it with good quality articles and posts about what you do, with your work, with what you have to offer, you will get found in search engines. You don't need to dive into search engine optimization, so that's a really technical thing, but it can be helpful to remember that you can really drive a good amount of traffic to your website if you offer articles or ideas about things that people want to see. It's all about this. If you want to be in business, you have to offer something that people want to see or want to have. If you teach something in an easy or very compelling way, or give insights into your niche, that's always a good place to start. Then another word about growing an audience. What I benefited most from are my website and my blog that continually drive new people to my website. And it pays off to build connections with other people in your niche, other artists, people who organize events with you and who will then promote your work. So you need to build genuine connections with these people who value your work or who you value. And these people will function as ambassadors for your work. That will always be better than trying to win over anonymous people on social media. It really does. So the connections to people in my niche help me to get known for what I do. And if people have heard your name before and associate with you with a certain thing, they will trust you over time. And I always ask myself if a tool that I use for my business will bring me sufficient return for the cost, so the time, the energy, the money that I put in. So let me explain this idea. A lot of people, myself included, started using social media for marketing, thinking that it's okay if it will bring at least a very small benefit. And what you should be doing instead is asking yourself if social media as a tool will bring you sufficient benefits for the time and the energy that you put in. If you run a business, you usually think about new investments in that way. Will this item be worth the cost? And the positive impacts have to clearly outweigh the negative impacts. So this is important. If you maintain a website and a blog, you don't depend on your social media posts going viral or getting a lot of views. You just have to write good posts that people want to read, combined with your art or whatever you do. And yes, this will also take a lot of time and energy, but these posts will end up in search engines, and usually they will stay in the search results for a very long time. Over time, that's a lot more powerful than social media. Instagram posts don't show up in any search engine, and I have to put up new things every day. So for me, it became clear that the minimal benefit that I get from social media will not come close to the benefit of writing blog posts and regularly posting them and building my own platform. So again, you can use social media as a tool for marketing if you find it brings you sufficient benefits for the time, the energy and money you put in. But usually when you're just starting out, that's not really the case, and it's much more valuable to use different tools. So let's take a look at the next question, and these are two very similar questions. So the first one from Lynn is, I struggle with social media as it just makes me feel worse about myself, but if you don't use those platforms, how does an emerging artist get themselves known? Everyone says you have to use social media if you want to sell your art. And the next question is from Anne. Instagram in particular is often presented as a great way for starting artists to build an audience that can then lead to sales or patrons. What are your tips for starting artists to build a successful career without using social media? I've been struggling with this a lot. I don't particularly enjoy social media and quit Facebook, but there's something about Instagram that makes me nervous quitting. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yes, I think that's something that's very familiar to a lot of people. And I think it's true that Instagram can definitely help you a lot as an artist, but it will particularly help you if you are already an established artist and have a huge following. The advice to build up a profile often comes from these established artists who already had a good following before social media existed, or who joined the platforms when there were not many people on there. So the success was then multiplied during these early days of social media. And that's why everyone keeps repeating it, I think. And I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but have you heard of a ton of new or starting artists that tell glowing stories of how Instagram has helped them a ton with clients or sales in the last 5 years or so? Because I have mostly heard the opposite. And the time and effort that starting artists put into social media would be better invested in building your art and business skills and finding out if and how you can even make a living from art in these times. Due to social media, the art world is very saturated and new artists emerge every single day. They are all on social media because someone told them to do that, and they all hope they will be discovered by their dream clients there or by a lot of patrons. And honestly, it's not a great time to start an art business. So your best hope is to build up your skills to a point where clients are really interested in what you have to offer. And then you contact them directly, or you get contacted, or you could build up your skills to a point where people want to learn from you, or maybe a combination of both. So both things only require, as you might have guessed, a website with your work and your contact info, and an active blog with interesting posts if you want to teach. If you want to sell your stuff, then you need to find out who wants to buy the kind of art that you want to make and how you can reach them. So my main tip would be focus on making great art or great products, or on getting a website and maybe a blog in place, and then learn about the business you want to be in. Put your time into those 3 things, not into social media. If you find out later that social media can be a valuable tool for your strategy, so if you want to run ads or something, then you can still open an account. But it's almost always better to build personal connections with real people in your industry or niche. So the next question is from Pamela. My question would be, how are you getting your illustration business clients without social media? And my answer is that I contact them directly. Often people find me through my website. Also, business clients don't usually have the time to scroll through a lot of social media profiles throughout their whole day. They're very busy people. So a targeted email to the right person will usually get you better results. Next question is from Christine. I have a question about social media and business impact. I'm a fiber artist working with natural dyes. I deleted my Facebook account in 2014. I am going to start selling my work on Etsy. I don't want to open another Facebook account, but I'm concerned about the impact on branding and sales. How have you built your business without having a Facebook presence? Actually, Facebook has had no real impact on my business at all. I had a business page and it practically just existed for me to automatically cross-post these things from Instagram too. If you want an additional web presence, invest in building a good website. I think people will find that more trustworthy, and it's much nicer to present your business on a dedicated website instead of just a Facebook page. Personally, as a potential customer, I would find this much better than a link to a Facebook page. So a Facebook page for me always can come off as a sign that the person behind this hasn't even invested in a website. Okay, the next question is from Heather. I've heard a lot of messages from artists that if you want to sell your art online, you have to use social media. I'm not happy about that, but I've been trying to learn how to use Instagram more effectively anyway, because at least then I'll have learned something. Yes, I had about the same strategy as you when I started, reluctantly learning how to get better at social media. I didn't really enjoy it either. And what I think you learn on these platforms is how to create posts that generate likes, if they make sense for you or not. So I'm approaching my art very, very differently now without the need to post something every day. It has been a very interesting development. And also think about if it's really a benefit to learn using Instagram effectively. So will it give you the results you're looking for? I explained this concept of sufficient benefits before. So you have to abandon the thought that you need to use social media because it might give you a benefit. You should only use it if the positive impacts outweigh the negative impacts, and everything else is not really a good business decision. Even if you learn some skills about handling social media, how does this affect your art business really? And yes, there are a few artists who are very successful on social media. But as I said, mostly these artists joined early or already had a big following before they were on these platforms. So they are successful on top of and not because of social media. Okay, this is the end of part 1 of our Q&A. I'll return for the second part in the next video. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you very soon.